So, could one guy from the 1600s have basically invented America? I know, it sounds kind of crazy, but that's the big question we're diving into today. We're talking about John Locke, a philosopher whose ideas on rights and government literally became the blueprint for, well, for the world we live in right now.
You know the phrase, right? I mean, it's got to be one of the most famous phrases ever written in English. It's right there in the Declaration of Independence, this huge promise of freedom that still means so much to people all over the world.
But what if I told you that wasn't the original idea? What if the original super revolutionary thought was actually life, liberty, and property? Yeah, that one little word swap from property to the pursuit of happiness, it's way more than just editing. It's our key to unlocking the mind of John Locke. And believe me, his way of thinking was so radical for its time, it literally helped start revolutions.
All right, so to really get Locke's ideas, we can't just think of him as some philosopher sitting in a quiet room. No way. We have to picture the world he was born into. This wasn't some peaceful academic ivory tower. He was living through total chaos, and everything he wrote was a direct answer to the turmoil happening all around him. So, picture this. 17th century England was a mess, completely torn apart by civil war. And it all boiled down to one huge question. Who's in charge? Is it the king, who's saying, hey, God picked me, so my power is absolute? Or is it Parliament, the group that's supposed to represent the people?
And right in the middle of all this fighting, Locke drops his 2 treatises of government. And let me tell you, this was not just some boring old book. It was a political bombshell. It was a direct shot at the whole idea of a king having absolute power. Instead, Locke championed this totally mind-blowing idea for the time. A government's power doesn't come from God. It comes from us, the people, agreeing to be governed.
So Locke's big argument starts with this really cool thought experiment. He basically says, okay, let's imagine a world with none of the stuff we have now. No kings, no laws, no government, no police, just people. What does that world look like? He called this the state of nature, and it's the absolute foundation for everything else he's going to argue.
Now, you might think that sounds like total chaos, right? But Locke said, nope, not exactly. He argued that even without government, we're still guided by what he called natural law. It's this basic, built-in sense of reason that tells us we shouldn't hurt each other. And out of that simple law, he pulls these 3 massive rights that he says we are all born with. Rights that no government can ever take away. Life, liberty, and, there it is again, property.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting, because this pretty optimistic view was completely different from another famous philosopher at the time, Thomas Hobbes. Hobbes looked at the state of nature and saw a total nightmare, a world where life was, in his words, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. But Locke, he saw something much more peaceful and reasonable. Now, he wasn't naive, he knew it wasn't perfect, and that there were some issues. So, while it wasn't a constant war, things were kind of iffy. I mean, think about it. If someone steals your stuff, what do you do? Who do you call? There's no judge, no police to enforce the rules. That constant uncertainty, that risk, that's what Locke called the inconvenience of the state of nature. And the way he proposed to solve this inconvenience is maybe his most powerful idea of all.
So this all leads us back to that huge concept for Locke, property. Let's think about his starting point. The world and everything in it was given to all of us, together. So how does any one person get to say, hey, this part's mine?
Locke's answer is actually pretty simple and pretty brilliant. He lays it out in a few steps. First, okay, the earth belongs to everyone. Got it. But he says you own yourself, right? You own your own body, which means you also own the work your body does, your labor. So step 3, when you take something from nature and mix your labor with it, like say you go out and pick an apple from a tree, bam, that apple is now yours. Your work turned it from a common good into your private property.
The key idea here, in Locke's own words, is that labor is what creates value. An apple just hanging on a tree is one thing, but the work it takes to pick it, that's what makes it actually useful and valuable to you. This idea, they call it the labor theory of value, was an absolute game changer. I mean, it became a core concept for pretty much every major economist who came after him, from Adam Smith to Karl Marx.
But, and this is a really big but, Locke wasn't saying you could just grab everything you wanted. He put in a really important condition, something people now call the Lockean proviso. Basically, you can take stuff for yourself as long as you leave enough and as good for everybody else. And man, that little clause is so important. People are still arguing about it today. Like, where's the line? When does one person's gain become another person's loss?
Okay, so this brings us back to that central puzzle. If we have all these natural rights, life, liberty, property, even in the state of nature, why on earth would we ever agree to give up that total freedom and create a government?
Well, the answer is all about what the state of nature doesn't have. Remember that inconvenience? Locke says to fix it, we need 3 things that just don't exist in nature. 1. A clear set of laws that everybody knows and agrees on. 2. A neutral judge to settle disputes, so it's not just you against them. And 3. Someone with the power to actually enforce those laws. Without those 3 things, our rights are always at risk.
And that right there, that's the core of Locke's argument for why we have government. It's a deal. It's a social contract. We agree to give up a little bit of our absolute wild freedom in exchange for something incredibly valuable, the security and protection of our most important rights. Our life, our liberty, and our property. I mean, when you stop and think about it, it's pretty incredible, isn't it? How did these ideas, born from the chaos of an English Civil War, manage to travel across the globe and completely reshape the future?
Well, his theories basically became the intellectual ammunition for the huge democratic revolutions of the 1700s. I'm talking about the American Revolution, the French Revolution. When Thomas Jefferson sat down and wrote about our unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, he was practically reading from John Locke's playbook.
Really, there's no doubt about it. Locke is one of the founding fathers of what we now call liberalism. Those basic ideas we take for granted in a democracy, that government power has to be limited, that it answers to the people, and that its main job is to protect our rights, that's all Locke. It's the bedrock of how we think about freedom.
But like with any big thinker, his legacy is complicated. There's another side to the story. Some modern critics look at Locke's intense focus on property and see something else. They argue that it basically gives a green light to unlimited capitalism and greed, that it creates a society of what one critic called possessive individualism, where massive inequality is just seen as okay.
And that leaves us with one last big question that we have to wrestle with today. Locke's whole theory was built on physical stuff. You work the land, you pick an apple, but what does property even mean in our digital world? What happens when your labor creates a piece of software or a viral TikTok video? What's your property then? John Locke gave us the starting point, the framework, but figuring out how it applies to the 21st century, well, that's on us.